Good morning, my dears, from a very icy, wild forest of Mount Overlook here. I believe it's going to warm up today, but going out there has been a journey to the North Pole and back. So today, a few words about the Maxims of the Duc de la Rochefoucauld. In the background, you may still hear our workmen. Those of you who tuned in to my video yesterday will know that there was a lot of sawing and buzzing of 1,000 wasps and hammering. You'll still hear more of that, I'm afraid. So the aphorism, or the maxim, or the apothegm, a word of which pedants are fond because it's, I think, one of the, anyway, very few, if not the only, word in the English language that contains 4 consecutive consonants. Apothegm, as I'm sure you all know, is spelt, I bet you don't, Apophthegm, apothegm. That's one for the spelling bees. So an apothegm is an aphorism, or a proverb, if you like, a maxim. And these short utterances, their golden age is the age of classical Greece and Rome. They supposedly derive originally from medicine, where it was useful to remember pithy expressions of how to stay healthy or how to keep away from diseases of various kinds. And since then, there have been little outbreaks of maxims. It now takes an author of singular vanity. I can think of one in post-war Britain, and I don't want to insult him by mentioning his name. He wrote once a formerly famous novel called The French Lieutenant's Woman, and several other novels, and then he delivered himself of a book of maxims, for which he was roundly laughed at, because I guess since the Duc de la Rochefoucauld, famous utterer of maxims, there haven't been very many. It's hard to keep up with the Duke, and that's the standard against which you're measuring yourself. There's no reason why you shouldn't issue such a volume. I wouldn't. I wouldn't do it, even if I had a lot of short, pithy observations, of which I was rather proud. I think I'd keep them to myself. So, the good Duke is an interesting character to compare with the 2 authors we've been looking at in the last couple of weeks, who are not good, not conventionally good people. The Marquis de Sade was a conventionally bad man, with having many outrageous acts of misconduct, mostly romantic and erotic. And John Wilmot, Earl of Rochester, who was a bad man kind of right across the board. He got involved in outrageous scenes and duels and multiple insults, and he was a bit like a rock star. He used to smash up rooms and people's gardens, and he was drunk almost all the time, which I don't think we could say of the Marquis de Sade. So the Earl of Rochester was a kind of all-purpose, extravagant person, and he cultivated badness. He did not elevate badness to a moral principle, as the Marquis de Sade did, who believed that evil was the best thing around. And Wilmot does not actually say that, but he seems to have practiced it anyway. Now, by contrast with these worthies as specimens of 18th century life, 18th century aristocracy, we have François, the Duc de la Rochefoucauld, who lived an extraordinarily honourable life, really. He was a good man, stuck to his principles. He was married, oh Lord, I think he may have been not much more than 14, which was the age of his bride. He was married young, as was the wont then, to link up aristocratic families and grab an eligible son or daughter while they were free, which at 13 or 14 they generally were. And they had, I think it was 4 sons and 3 daughters, or maybe it was the other way around. They had 7 children, as far as I remember, and he was a faithful husband, although he was a great friend to many of the important women of the age. I don't know that means he was more than a friend. I suspect not. I think he was a man of great moral principles, even though his maxims, which apart from his memoirs are what he has left to us, left to posterity, his maxims are not in praise of virtue. His maxims are extremely cynical in that they observe the extent to which people act out of self-interest. And he would not claim, I think, to have been virtuous himself out of more than self-interest. Virtue can be entirely self-interested, in that your own good opinion of yourself might be the most precious thing that you own, that you would not want to put at risk. That's probably what the Duke would have said. His lifetime was marked by his participation in the civil wars of the 17th centuries, while Louis XIV was young. They were called the Fronde. A fronde was a kind of a slingshot that was banned in the streets of Paris, a fairly lethal instrument, and it was a symbol of rebellion. But the battle was between the king's party and the nobility, between Paris and the provinces, between factions within the nobility. There was no revolution yet being undertaken or even imagined, and there were also wars with Spain. The Duke conducted himself very bravely, and as I have to say, before we leave him totally behind, did John Wilmot, Earl of Rochester, who enlisted in the Navy and served very honourably in the Navy, and rowed to and fro between ships in battle, bringing important information. I don't know why they couldn't do it with flags in those days, but seemingly they couldn't. While he was under fire, he rode to and fro. And the King, Charles II, his patron and friend, admired him, and he often got back into the King's good graces, did the Earl of Rochester, John Wilmot, by courage, by acts of courage. And these were also accomplished by the Duc de la Rochefoucauld. He says something wonderful in the course of his memoirs. His memoirs have some maxims in them, but they are much more of interest to historians and obviously at the time to his friends and enemies. And it is the maxims in and of themselves, with their eternal qualities, that promise to be the lasting part of his work. And he wrote, "Les crimes deviennent innocents." It's a section. It's not it's maybe a small succession of maxims, but it's a passage of a longer kind that he used to. He took these and boiled them down for later use in the maxims. And what he said was, crimes are rendered innocent, even virtuous, by their number and nature. Hence, public robbery becomes a skillful achievement, and wrongful seizure of a province is called conquest. Crime, he says, has its heroes no less than virtue has. Now that last line he actually uses in the Maxims. Il y a des héros en mal. There are heroes in badness as there are in good, which is fair enough, but it's obscure. I don't really like the Maxim version so much. The heroes of badness. What do we mean? Famous for their awfulness, as there are people who are famous for their goodness. That doesn't tell us very much. But his version, his expanded version in the memoirs, tells us far more. As he says, you can conquer or you can rape a country and call it conquest, and you can steal a public utility and call it skill or habileté. He describes it as a skillful achievement. And that seems to me to be much more to the point, that heroism has to be taken where you find it, and it can come under many titles or rubrics, as we well know. So I hope you will enjoy the Maxims. I don't know that I really propose to talk my way through any of them with you. I think the first Maxim of his that really, when I read it, it drilled straight into my heart, and I've never forgotten it. And it made me aware of Maxims in and of themselves. It so struck me, and I had never thought of this and have never been able to get it out of my mind since then, where he writes that modesty is the desire to be complimented twice. When I read this, I thought, what? And I thought, oh, yeah. How true that is. I'm always modest. I always say, no. Oh, I think you're exaggerating. And indeed, I reap the reward by the other person saying, oh, not at all. No, in fact, you are the very thing I just said. The honest man, I don't know if honest is the word, because I don't think that the Duke really believed in honest men. But the prudent, the tactful man might, rather than saying, no, you're too kind, might just say, thank you. If somebody says, your work is excellent, brilliant, remarkable, you could just say, thank you so much. If you deny it, however, you are prompting somebody to say it again. And I thought, oh, this Maxim thing is rather interesting. And if you look at the Maxims that brief list that I've made for you, I'm just seeing that the third one, well, they're all good. The first one, no one deserves to be praised for kindness if he does not have the strength to be bad. Every other form of kindness is most often merely laziness or lack of willpower. That's so good. A man is truly honourable if he is willing to be perpetually exposed to the scrutiny of honourable people. That's to say, there are people whose respect you can get rather easily. Those who are not easy to get respect from, they're the ones you should be exposed to. And just one more. The person who lives without folly is not as wise as he thinks. This is wonderful in praise of folly. I love the number 5 here. We often annoy other people when we think we could not possibly annoy them. That's so true. So sadly true. So I hope you enjoy that, and I hope some of them you take, I was going to say to your grave, that's a bit sinister, but you carry through life as I have carried his maxim about modesty being the desire to be complimented twice. Good luck with them, and I look forward to you choosing 6 of them to mention as your special favorites and to tell me why. Have a nice warm day, my dears. Bye-bye.